When I was 21, I transferred to a college in San Francisco. I checked out a room for rent on Craigslist. It was in a really nice 2-bedroom apartment. It was cheap and close to campus, so it was the ideal spot. The girl who lived there was 29 and her name was Beth. She was tall, wide, she had jet black hair and wore pale makeup, but she seemed nice, although quiet. But she seemed to like me and agreed to let me move in. So far so good. My first night there, we went out for pizza, and that's when I could tell that something was a little bit off about her. Throughout dinner, she kept telling me how much I looked like Shia LaBeouf. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged it off with a thanks. I mean, I look nothing like Shia LaBeouf, so it didn't make any sense to me. When we got back home, she asked if I had seen her room yet. I said no, and she took me in to come and see. Her walls were covered in posters of Shia LaBeouf. She even had printed out photos of him all over her mirror. She owned all of his movies. I didn't know what it was. It was creepy. The whole night she'd been saying I looked like him, and now it's obvious to me that she's obsessed with this guy. A few weeks had passed, and I never really saw much of her. We didn't spend any time together really. She would come home from work and practically run to her room. She would spend the whole night in there. She had this creepy, high-pitched giggle, and I would hear her giggling through the walls at night. I wondered what the hell she could possibly be doing. Occasionally she would come out and talk, and she would always be slurring her words, so I suspected she was drinking. Sometimes she wouldn't say anything, and she would just stand in the hallway and watch me in the living room. I would turn and see her, and be surprised and say, "Hello, Beth." And then there would be this long, awkward pause, and she would give out her creepy, high-pitched giggle. It was uncomfortable being around her. She gave me the chills. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. I heard what sounded like the front door being unlocked. I came out of my bedroom, and all of the lights were off, but I could still see Beth standing at the front door, and she was turning the lock back and forth over and over again. Seeing her stand in the dark seriously freaked me out. I just quietly went back to my room and tried to sleep. One night I was watching Gladiator, and she stumbled out of her room then and turned on the living room light. She then asked me if I wanted to hear about her ex-boyfriend. It was an uneasy saying into the topic, but I just said sure and then awkwardly sat back and listened to her. 10 minutes into her story, and she was so riled up. She was screaming at the top of her lungs about the breakup. I was worried that the neighbours were going to call the cops or something, and she wasn't listening to me when I was asking her to lower the volume. Amidst all of the screaming, one thing she said really freaked me out. She was in such a fit and yelled, "I'll slit his fucking throat." Suddenly from then on I had no idea what this girl was capable of. She was practically a stranger, and everything I had seen was becoming alarmingly disturbing. After a few more minutes, she told me thanks for listening and started her giggle. I got out of there pretty fast and I went to my room to go to sleep. I had a pretty unsettling feeling about being in the house with her. And what's worse is that there was no lock on my bedroom door. I pushed the edge of the dresser in front of it to act as a little barricade. On this night, I woke up to the sound of the dresser scraping against the floor. Beth was pushing the door open. I turned on a light, shouting at her to stop. I could see her through the opening of the door. She was so drunk and had this insane look in her eyes. I pushed the door closed and yelled at her to go to bed. I could hear her walk back to the room, but I just couldn't fall asleep. The next morning, when I went out into the hallway, my heart dropped. I saw one of her steak knives was on the floor by my door. I got goosebumps all over my arms. All I could think about was her saying she would slit the guy's throat. I confronted her about it, but she said she didn't remember trying to push the door open. She said she didn't even remember telling me about her ex. At this point I had enough. My lease was month to month, so I found a new spot and moved out. About a month after, she contacted me. I was at the movies and my phone was off. When I got out, I turned on my phone, and to my shock I received about 40 plus texts that she had sent me over the past 2 hours. They were all just insane texts that ranged from everything between hi to how are you to I fucking hate you. It was insane. I didn't respond and I never heard from her again. Although I always wondered if I hadn't set my dress in front of the door, would she have quietly come into my room and slit my throat?